Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the difference between how slim and comparatively fit people were 50 years ago to how they are today. Now, whether you look at a street scene or a beach scene sort of really tells it all. You can see the difference if you look at, say, a beach. You can plenty of reels and videos online to look at a beach scene, say from the early 1970s, late 1960s, and I use that time frequently as a baseline. But compared to today, now, I remember as a kid, going down the beach, the only people that seemed overweight were the older people, the senior citizens. Having said that, my age then, I assumed anyone over the age of 25 was a senior citizen. But no, I'm talking, my grandparents' age, that type of thing. So the people were slim and fit and compared to today, and even at school, I remember the girls at school, the amount of overweight girls were very few. There were some, but there were few. Most were maybe not attractive or good looking, but they were slim, so as indeed were the boys. So there just wasn't much of this overweight thing that we see today. Now, I'm not going to use the body mass index guide, as I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's really relevant to today. For example, at my height, 6'2", at my height, I'm 20 kilograms overweight according to the body mass index. So 40 pounds, over 40 pounds. So by that measure, I'm in the obese category, and yet there's no way that I'm unfit, given the amount of exercises and bike riding and the careful diet. So I don't think the body mass index really is the be all and end all. And I think it was formulated at a time over 100 years ago now, when people were living differently, eating differently, existing very differently. So nonetheless, coming back to Australia has a beach season of four, probably 20 weeks a year. It's beach weather. I live near the beach. I did as a kid. And so I'm down the beach quite a lot, not as much as I'd like to be, but I'm down the beach quite a lot. And I'm staggered at how unfit the people are. If I was a young guy on the make or a single guy on the make, which I'm not, but were I to be, and I'd go down the beach to sort of check out the hot chicks, there was hardly any there. Every time I go to the beach, there's hardly any hot chicks. And when I say that, I'm someone that just because they're small and slim isn't enough. They need to be clearly fit. That's certainly, by my perspective at least. But there are hardly any there. You're lucky if out of hundreds of women on the beach, wearing their bathing costumes, I'm lucky if there's even 1% that would be, I would classify at least as hot, as in they're fit and that sort of thing. For the majority, though, teenage girls, shitloads of teenage girls are just overweight, yet they're wearing bathing costumes that at one time only the most confident, hottest chicks would wear. And yet these girls are wearing, the G-string thing and the flabby ass hanging out and so. But how do they get that way? How can so many people be that overweight and unfit compared to 50 years ago? Now, the amount of gyms and places to work out today are, they're everywhere. I don't know how those places exist given the amount of unfit people. I suppose you can look at it two ways. Look at the amount of unfit people, thus there is a huge opportunity for gyms. Or you can say, fuck me, look at all these unfit people. There's no way anyone's going to go to a gym or bothers to go to a gym. So it depends, your cup half full, half empty, or the old sort of thing when the shoe salesman goes to, the desert, around the desert in the Middle East, and says, nobody wears shoes around here. We're wasting our time. And the other salesman looks at it and says, wow, no one wears shoes around here. Think about the huge opportunity. So it depends on your perspectives there. But why are people unfit today compared to then? And I think there's a whole lot of things. I don't think there's one thing. We often fall in the trap of thinking there must be one thing or two things, and that's going to tell us, that's going to explain it all. But I don't. I think it's more than that. Firstly, the amount of manual labour jobs that existed then, whether in a factory or whatever, that they were far more. That was over a third of all jobs, and now it's down to 7 or 8% of all jobs. Similarly, the level of automation in the workplace, in any industrial or related job, or even like somebody just picking stock in a warehouse. I worked at a warehouse as an after-school summer holiday job when I was a kid, and there was almost no automation there. Everything was by hand. If you had to move something from one end to the other, you just formed a human chain and passed the stuff around. You did those sorts of things. So, when going to school, for example, the idea that your parents would drive you to school was just unthinkable. From as early age as I can remember, even going to kindergarten, things like that, I would walk to school, and that wasn't considered unusual or strange or anything like that. So people had much more exercise. Similarly, the relative cost of a motor vehicle and the relative cheap cost of public transport meant that people would use public transport. But I remember, people I knew and friends of mine would say, well, they were going to walk an extra few hundred meters to the next bus station or train station or whatever it was, because if that moved them into the next sector, which meant they could save a buck or something on their travel each day, so they would go walking to do things like that. But also walking to the spread of public transport back in the day wasn't as great as it is now, so that people would, the bus stop or the train would stop, a certain distance away from where they would work, and so they would have to walk. There was a lot of people who were leaving school at 14 back in the day, to do trades and so on. And they of course weren't old enough to drive a car, and so they would walk everywhere, and that would get them in the habit of walking and maintaining a certain level of fitness just through sort of the general miasma of their physical activity, walking to public transport, then to walking to the workplace and walking to school and so on, walking to the grocery store. And I've always tried to walk, if I can. I mean, if I've got to drive, I've got to drive. But I've always tried to walk, and yet I've always been able to, afford a car. At times I've got a car, a bicycle, and a motorbike, or two cars, or two cars and a motorbike. In a family situation, so I've always been able to pay for, always been able to have transport there if I wanted it, but chose wherever I could to do the walking. Or there's a swimming pool not far away. I like to one stage I was doing a lot of swimming. And I would walk to the swimming pool because it was only about 1 kilometre away, so why not? Walk there and back. All these little things help. Similarly, with food, in terms of convenience food, fast food, a couple of days ago, I had a takeout burger. I was just running short on time, and I knew if I waited till I got back to the house, it would be nearly 3 o'clock, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that, even though I had plenty of stuff in the refrigerator to have for lunch. So I decided I'd have just a quick drive-through burger and fries. But I've noticed a lot of people, there was a time when convenience food, fast food, was cheap compared to what you would, the time and effort you'd put to preparing food at home. That's changed, yet people still are in the habit of using fast food. I was just looking at a poster that I was driving past. It's $50 for a family of 4 to have the takeout food thing from I was a burger place, I think, or a chicken place. And then when you look at that $50 a family of 4, they could easily eat for half that, less than half that price, if they went to the grocery store and eat. Even if they got a cooked chicken from the grocery store and a couple of vegetables or something like that, and they could easily eat. 4 of them could easily eat for again, less than half that price. So the diet has changed and the concept of convenience. Now, on some sides, that there was only the man we used to work, or the father husband used to work, and the woman would be at home, or maybe would work part time or casual. So she'd be available to go and do the shopping at the store. Today, a lot of both parents work, and I appreciate it's more difficult, and you can appreciate the convenience food. Being able to just drive past them and you've got the whole dinner taken care of. And so they're prepared to pay a bit extra just so they avoid the aggravation of having to go shopping. Maybe they didn't plan ahead, or maybe they didn't do a big weekly shopping. And this is something, the big weekly shopping that used to be the go, that's changed, and people buy bits and pieces here and there. I often do that. So we're looking at lifestyles that are very different. I moved from an area of relative, or not poverty, but certainly quite working class, to an area that was quite affluent. This is at school, and the everybody walked to school. The amount of physical activity that these people did, the girls could have 3 or 4 netball teams, all of which were competitive. There were that many girls who were. And I remember I remember as a schoolboy just how fit the girls were. Then moving to the affluent area, there were hardly any fit girls. They were all flabby, and mothers would drive them to and from school in the Volvo. The idea that these girls would walk to school or walk home was unthinkable. And so they were ferried around by parents, and the girls that would normally do sports, these girls were getting taken out on the weekend to, how to use makeup and deportment and elocution and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but a very different sort of lifestyle. So we're looking at a completely different time, a completely different lifestyle. If I noticed at the time that orange juice, you bought it at the store, you had a couple of days really to drink it because it had no preservatives in it. So it went off and fermented quite quickly but today, an orange juice can last over a week in the refrigerator, but it's got a lot of preservatives. So the amount of preservatives and other food dyes and additives and salts and sugars that are in the food to make it last longer, and the amount of takeout, the amount of, even in the supermarket, the amount of convenience food. So we're looking at different diets, different habits, different amounts of exercise, different amounts of travel, and so on. There's some people I know. She only lives maybe a mile away from where she works, but she frequently takes a taxi. Can't even bother to do public transport. The public transport stops at the top of the road, so she gets a taxi to go to and from work. And needless to say, she's not very fit, but she could be if she would bother to put in the exercise and put in the effort. I look at a lot of the girls that go to, not so much the men, but the girls that go to gymnasiums, and they've got no raw material. They're unattractive, seriously unattractive women. So now how much work they put into looking good in the gym, it's not going to make any difference. But I see girls with quite a lot of raw material. If they put the time into the gym, they could look smoking hot, but they can't be bothered. They'd rather have takeout food and avoid exercise and anything strenuous at every opportunity. But the beach is the place where you see it. I'm staggered at the amount of seriously unfit, overweight people that you see on the beach, and they can't use baggy clothing or loose-fitting clothing to conceal it. You see it. Now, there's on a relative basis, there's far more men that are fit than women, and yet with the amount of gyms and things that are around, free gyms at work, there are many companies now that offer gyms. I went into a gym at a company recently, had a look. It was only men in the gym, and yet the majority of the workforce in that company are women. Why were no women in the gym? It's free. It's part of their employment package, and it's a well-appointed gym. So there's a lot of attitudes to fitness and to diet and to just day-to-day work. But most people now work in air-conditioned offices, and the only exercise they do is pushing buttons on a keyboard. They don't do anything else. And if you're in that situation, then you're not going to be fit. And if you add in poor quality food and takeout food and that sort of thing, and overeat, the snacks in between the meals, the chocolate cookies and that sort of thing, then this is how it all pans out. So what can change that? Well, very different attitudes, very different diets, very different quality of food. It can be changed and it can be done, but that's how it is at the moment. You're being a Tassus today, your Pushback Channel. Thank you for